Good morning, Ribhu Gita, the song of Ribhu, chapter 39. So, this is a very joyous moment in the book because Nidaga suddenly understood what Ribhu is speaking about in the previous chapter. So, here's chapter 39. The title is Nidaga's Eulogy in Loving Wonder of the Grace of the Guru. And his description of the wonderful direct experience of the undivided awareness. One. The blemishless sage Ribhu again affectionately addressed sage Nidaga thus. Did you understand the greatness of the rare to find undivided knowledge as I explained? Did you attain Brahman in your undivided mind with realization that is steadfast and free of differences? Did you attain the state of being that, devoid of all the vacillating distortions of the mind? 2. Did you attain the knowledge of the undivided Absolute, rid of all the ignorance surrounding the I? Did you get rid of the faith in action engendered as a long-standing residue? So, did you get rid of the faith in action engendered as a long-standing residue? Did you abide in your true nature, rid of the remembrance of the notion that all is real? And did you reach the changeless, fearless abode, rid of all kinds of duality? 3. Did you realize with certitude that nothing ever is real without the self? Did you attain the unwavering certainty that nothing is ever real without Brahman? Did you attain the unwavering certainty that all is the undivided Brahman? Did you dissolve beyond any doubt in your natural self, which is awareness, by the certitude that this exposition gave? Rare one, did you, rid of the originless anguish of the cycle of birth and death, attain undivided supreme bliss? 4. Tell us in detail about all this. As the sage Ribhu spoke these words, the spotless sage Nidaga, with love brimming over, started to address the Guru, relating all his direct experience thus in great joy, with his mind imbued with the steadfast knowledge of the undivided Absolute, gained by the compassion of the remarkable Guru. 5. Blemishless Supreme Guru, I have listened to all the greatness of the undivided knowledge as imparted to me. My guide, by your compassion, I carry in my uninhibited mind the steadfast knowledge. I have received in my differenceless mind the indescribable, undivided Supreme Brahman. I have attained the indivisible state in my non-attached, innate nature. 6. Good Guru, by your grace, rid of all ignorance, the arch enemy of undivided knowledge. Attaining the knowledge of the attributeless Supreme Brahman, indifferent to all kinds of action, devoid of the delusion of the existence of the phenomenal universe, free from all the inhibiting fears of duality, becoming of the nature of the decayless Supreme Brahman. Oh, Oh, I have reached a fearless abode that has nothing apart from it. 7. Best among gurus, by your compassion, rid of all restricting ideas of differences, and with great steadfastness, I have instantaneously reached the certitude that all is Brahman. Oh, by this expansive, definite certitude, I am at peace with myself, the Absolute, and with all the spreading misery of the mundane existence removed, I have indeed attained the blemishless supreme bliss. 8. Till this day I had been spoiled by ignorance. Today I've had my fear removed by your compassion. Till this day I had been spoiled by the mind, the enemy. Today I've become great by your compassion. Till this day I have been spoiled by ideas of action. Today I have my mind cleared by your compassion. Till this day I had been spoiled by ideas of the individual, the jiva. Today I have verily become Shiva himself by your compassion. 9. Earlier I was wandering as an ignoramus. Today here I have become one who has realized I am the self. Earlier I was misled about my being the body. Today I have become one who has realized himself, the seer. Earlier I had confused myself as thought. Today I have become one who has realized himself as all consciousness. Earlier I remained as a distortion of consciousness. Today I've become one who has realized himself as the supreme consciousness alone. 10. What seemed to be I also became Brahman. What seemed as apart also became Brahman. What seemed as eons of time became Brahman. What looked like beings also became Brahman. What looked like the here and the hereafter became Brahman. What looked like this and that all became Brahman. All manner of appearances became Brahman. Wonderful is your grace. How wonderful. Oh, how wonderful. 11. Debilitating delusion and all else became Brahman. The actions of the Lord Ishvara all became Brahman. The body and other conditionings all became Brahman. The individuals subject to conditioning all became Brahman. Impediments like attachments all became a Brahman. All this world of duality became Brahman. The succession of manifold appearances all became Brahman. Wonderful is your grace. How wonderful. Oh, how wonderful. 12. What appeared to me earlier as impurity has today become for me the delusionless supreme Brahman. What appeared as my mind has today become for me the ultimate truth, the supreme Brahman. What appeared to me as action has today become for me the spotless supreme Brahman. And what appeared as despicable has today become for me the perfectly full supreme Brahman. Oh, by your grace, all the doubts of the mind disappeared in a flash. By your grace, mundane misery and attachments all disappeared in a moment. By your grace, not only the world, the individuals, and the supreme, but the delusion that arises disappeared. By your grace, the changeless certitude that all is Brahman has permanently taken root. 14. What appears as all is thought indeed. By your grace, thought itself has become Brahman. All is Brahman indeed, and that am I. By such understanding of the undivided Absolute, and thereby being rid of the differences as all and I, and reaching the state of the changeless, undivided Absolute, and discarding all the unutterable worldly attachments, I have become the indivisible Supreme Brahman. 15. I indeed have become Brahman, all existence. I indeed have become Brahman, all consciousness. I indeed have become Brahman, the blemishless. I indeed have become Brahman, the changeless. I indeed have become Brahman, the complete. I indeed have become Brahman, the defectless. I indeed have become the undivided Supreme Brahman. O most elevated, how great is your grace, how great. 16. I indeed have become the eternal Supreme Brahman. I indeed have become the peerless Brahman. I indeed have become the pure Brahman. I have become the subtle Supreme Brahman. I have become the blemishless Brahman. I have become the attachmentless Brahman. I indeed have become the undivided Brahman. O Master, how great is your grace, how great. 17. I have become Brahman of the nature of reality. I have become Brahman, the changeless. I have become Brahman of the nature of consciousness. I have become Brahman without identifications. I have become Brahman ever in bliss. I have become Brahman the peaceful. I have become Brahman the immeasurable. O most elevated, how great is your grace, how great. I indeed have become Brahman, the bondageless. I indeed have become Brahman, the indivisible. I indeed have become Brahman, which is love alone. I indeed have become Brahman, the unequaled. I indeed have become Brahman, the untainted. I indeed have become Brahman, the great. I indeed have become Brahman, pure bliss. I indeed have become Brahman, the ever-existent, peaceful one. How great is your grace, how great. 19. I have become Brahman, the mass of existence, consciousness, bliss. I have become Brahman, the utterly peaceful. I have become Brahman, the eternal, the attributeless. I have become Brahman, the taintless, the partless. I have become Brahman without a trace of duality. I have become Brahman, the one, complete and whole. I have become the non-dual, undivided Brahman. O Master, how great is your grace, how great. 20. I have become the Supreme Brahman, the substratum of all. I have become Brahman, which manifests as all. I have become Brahman, which is devoid of all characteristics. I have become Brahman, the eternally immaculate. I have become Brahman, the mass of bliss. I have become the Supreme Brahman, the naturally self-luminous. I have become the Supreme Brahman, the naturally self-effulgent. I have become the undivided Supreme Brahman, untouched by any sin. Sinless one, how great is your grace? How great? 21. I have become Brahman, that alone. I have become Brahman, which abides as that. I have become Brahman, which is being alone. I have become Brahman, which stands as the ancient. I have become Brahman, which is consciousness alone. I have become Brahman, which is existence alone. I have become Brahman, which is bliss alone. I have become Brahman, which is of the nature of the space of consciousness. I have become Brahman, which is all goodness. O Master, how great is your grace! How great! 22. By your grace, I have become the eternal Supreme Brahman. By your grace, I have become the pure Supreme Brahman. By your grace, I have become the enlightened Supreme Brahman. By your grace, I have become the liberated Supreme Brahman. By your grace, I have become the blemishless Supreme Brahman. By your grace, I have become the motionless Supreme Brahman. By your grace, I have become the undivided Supreme Brahman. What can I say of your grace? 23. By your grace, I have become the Supreme Brahman, the all-pervasive. By your grace, I have become the Supreme Brahman, the qualityless. By your grace, I have become the Supreme Brahman, ultimate truth. By your grace, I have become the Supreme Brahman, unimpeded by nature. By your grace, I have become the Supreme Brahman, omnipresent in nature. By your grace, I have become the Supreme Brahman, devoid of anything. By your grace, I have become the one Supreme Brahman. What shall I say of your grace? 24. By your grace, I have become the pentad of deities like Brahma and others. By your grace, I have become the demons, gods, and men. By your grace, I have become limitless, the limitless variety of worlds. By your grace, I have transcended all. By your grace, I have become the undivided, eternal, pure, supreme Shiva, devoid of everything. By your grace, I have become the blemishless Supreme Shiva, shining as the undivided expanse of consciousness. 25. By your grace, the various castes have ceased to exist. By your grace, the various orders of life have ceased to exist. By your grace, the experiences of these have ceased to exist. By your grace, there is no action to be performed relating. By your grace, there is no happiness or sorrow. By your grace, there are no dyads. By your grace, there are no contrarieties. By your grace, there is nothing at any time. By your grace, all is Brahman, indeed. 26. By your grace, there are no afflictions, mental or physical. By your grace, there is no wealth or woe. By your grace, there is no perceivable difference. By your grace, there's not a trace of fear. By your grace, there's neither you nor I. By your grace, there is no world, individual, or the supreme. By your grace, there's nothing whatever at any time. By your grace, all is indeed the undivided Brahman. 27. Rid of all ignorance by your grace. attaining the state of blemishless knowledge by your grace, with all this duality dissolved by your grace, ensconced firmly at the apogee of non-duality by your grace, with all the endless travails of transmigration terminated by your grace, I indeed have attained the changeless bliss of liberation by your grace. I have become this eternal consciousness bliss, the peerless Supreme Brahman, revered one. 28. My true Guru, what avails explanation by many words? By your steady, unwavering compassion, I have traversed the evil, the originless ocean of worldly existence in a trice, and totally devoid of the triad of qualities, devoid of even a trace of the primal ignorance. I have become the peerless Supreme Brahman, the attributeless, the eternal consciousness bliss. 29. Stating thus, with utmost deference, in front of the sage Ribhu, the non-dual experience he had attained in the undivided Supreme Brahman, Nidaga himself transformed into the undivided, without the minutest misapprehension, and identifying himself with the Supreme Brahman, enjoyed perfect bliss. 30. The blessing of liberation is only for those who are the recipients of the grace of Shiva due to their active devotion, such as worship of Shiva and such, and in whom arises the undivided supreme knowledge that all is Brahman and I am that, not for others. Thus Sutta told the assembled sages in the manner that Skanda earlier explained to Jagisharya, brimming with devotion to Shiva. 31. It is the infinite form of our Lord of all, in a state of rare joyous dance, that says, Nidaga explained with firmness and deference his personal awareness in the presence of the Guru, in the manner expounded by the Guru, that all that manifests as different is only Brahman, and that is yourself. I'm going to carry on with the next chapter. Let me see. Chapter 14. Nidaga's declaration of him being Brahman, the seer, with nothing to see and no obeisance to be offered to the Guru. 1. As the recipient, as the beneficiary of the ineffable, undivided supreme bliss, Sage Nidaga continued, Master, by your steadfast compassion for me, who have become of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, submerged in an ocean of bliss, rid of all the bondage and sorrow of worldly existence, there is no perception of duality such as the Lord, the world, and the individual, not in the least. 2. I do not perceive the body that appears as gross. I do not perceive the body that appears as subtle. I do not perceive the body that appears as causal. I do not perceive the deluded mind and such. I do not perceive time or space and such. I do not perceive a trace of anything illusory. I have become the Supreme Brahman, of the nature of the supremely quiescent, changeless, complete existence. 3. I do not perceive the sentient or the insentient. I do not perceive the existent or the non-existent. I do not perceive the pot or the cloth or other objects. I do not perceive cause and effect. I do not perceive the body or other conditionings. I do not perceive any individual, the jiva, or the supreme para that becomes conditioned. I have become the eternal supreme Brahman of the nature of untrammeled joy, shining consciousness, O revered one. I do not perceive the forms of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and others. I do not perceive the pentad of actions performed by them. I do not perceive the gods or demons, men or beasts. I do not perceive the sun or the moon or other luminaries. I do not perceive a trace of the presence of the here or hereafter. I do not perceive the differentiation as individuals and worlds. I have become the Supreme Brahman, the exalted reality, formless as space. 5. I do not perceive any duality or non-duality. I do not perceive any joy or sorrow, praise or blame. I do not perceive any differences of multiple religions. I do not perceive anything that stands apart. I do not perceive any guru conferring auspiciousness or any disciple. I do not perceive any words of instruction. Becoming the blemishless, undivided supreme consciousness, I have become the changeless Brahman. 6. I do not perceive any trace of the fickle ignorance. I do not perceive any of the doubts. I do not perceive the states of listening and such. I do not perceive the states of one-pointed concentration and such. I do not perceive any fear of defective duality. I do not perceive any of the insurmountable bondage of worldly existence. I have become the non-dual Supreme Brahman, the motionless, undivided Supreme Consciousness, revered one. 7. I do not perceive modification like birth and others. I do not perceive the body and such undergoing modification. I do not perceive different states such as wakefulness and such. I do not perceive the qualities that are assigned like name and such. I do not perceive dream or the high, the low and others. I do not perceive any of the illusory pairs of opposites. I have become the non-dual Supreme Brahman, the mass of eternal bliss, revered one. I do not perceive any of the beings or the world. I do not perceive any of the senses or the organs. I do not perceive any of the Vedas or scriptures. I do not perceive any of the injunctions or prohibitions. I do not perceive any of the castes, law, or lineage. I do not perceive any actions or achievements. I have become the non-dual undivided Supreme Brahman, undivided, originless, and endless, revered one. That was verse 8. Verse 9 now. I do not perceive anything of duality as not being Brahman. I see everything as the Supreme Brahman. I do not perceive anything as apart from Brahman. I see everything as the Supreme Brahman. I do not perceive anything differentiated as all. I see all as the Supreme Brahman. Best of Gurus, I indeed have become the Supreme Brahman. How great is your undiminishing grace. 10. I am indeed Brahman, the mass of existence, consciousness, bliss. I am indeed Brahman, the changeless, the peaceful. I am indeed Brahman, the void, which is knowledge. I am indeed Brahman, which stands as that. I am indeed Brahman, which stands motionless like a rock. I am indeed Brahman, the taintless and undivided. By such constant, practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the Supreme Brahman without a second. 11. I am indeed Brahman, the unattached of the fourth state. I am indeed Brahman, the spotless and pure. I am indeed Brahman, the endless and eternal. I am indeed Brahman, the perfectly pure. I am indeed Brahman, the bondageless and liberated. I am indeed Brahman, the differenceless knowledge. By such practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the Supreme Brahman without a second. 12. I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, the substratum of all. I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, which manifests as all. I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, which is completely free of any identity. I indeed am the non-dual Brahman, devoid of all. I indeed am the all-complete, perfectly full Brahman. I indeed am Brahman, which has no sextet of modifications. By such undiminishing practiced certitude, revered one, I have become Brahman without a second. 13. I indeed am Brahman, the mass of existence, consciousness, bliss. I am Brahman, the mass of eternal bliss. I am Brahman, the eternal, the partless. I am Brahman, which is veilless. I am Brahman, which is non-dual. I am Brahman, the undivided and perfectly full. By such practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the Supreme Brahman without a second. I am Brahman without any illusions. 14. I am Brahman, which exists untainted. I am Brahman, which is full of consciousness. I am Brahman, which is the expanse of consciousness. I am Brahman, which abides fearlessly. I am Brahman, which is all-pervasive. By such wonderful practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the undivided Supreme Brahman. 15. I am of the nature of the attachmentless Brahman. I am of the nature of the defectless Brahman. I am of the nature of the indestructible Brahman. I am of the nature of the divisionless Brahman. I am of the nature of the indescribable Brahman. I am of the nature of the indivisible Brahman. By such blemishless practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the undivided Brahman. 16. I am of the nature of Brahman, the immemorial. I am of the nature of Brahman, the complete. I am of the nature of Brahman, the afflictionless. I am of the nature of Brahman, the motionless. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the high and low. I indeed am of the nature of Brahman, the sanctified. By such practiced certitude, day and night, revered one, I have become the fearless Supreme Brahman. 17. I am of the nature of Brahman, the blemishless. I am of the nature of Brahman, the attributeless. I am of the nature of Brahman, the One. I am of the nature of Brahman, the incomparable. I am of the nature of Brahman, the great. I am of the nature of Brahman, the undifferentiated. By such non-dual practice certitude, revered one, I have become the Supreme Brahman. 18. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the eternal. I am of the nature of Brahman, the untainted. I am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the pure. I am of the nature of Brahman, the subtle. I am of the nature of Brahman, the sublime. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, awareness itself. By such doubtless practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the imperishable Supreme Brahman. 19. I have thus stated, demonstrated in this manner, the great experience I've had by your grace. Immense ocean of compassion, there is no way I can recompense you here. I offered you my body and my mind, but you've burnt them to ashes instantaneously. Sinless one, I offered you myself, and you have made that also as your own self. 20. How shall I now recompense you? All is your non-dual natural self. I am submerged in the ocean of I am Brahman, and dissolved therein, where you are, where you are I, and I am you, in absolute identity. Is there anything apart, in this state of the one self, abiding as itself, all alone? 21. Hence there is nothing for me to give, and there's no way for you to take it and go anywhere else. What exists anywhere ever is only the expanse of consciousness. As, according to your teachings, there's nothing apart anywhere, there is no scope for you to instruct something, and for me to learn it lovingly. What a wonder this is, revered one. 22. You, the Sadguru, who give with grace, do not exist. I, the good disciple to receive it, do not exist. There is no threefold division of qualities. There is no world arising as a bad dream. There are no consequent beings or Lord Ishvara. There is no primary ignorance, nor is there Maya. Is it not only the nature of the attributeless Supreme Brahman that remains all pervasive? 23. To me, submerging myself in the peerless ocean of bliss that is the one Supreme Brahman, and sporting therein in the heart's content, all thirst slaked, all fatigue relieved, becoming that itself, and established in the indivisible, there's not a thing to see as a part. Sadguru, true Guru, how generous is your grace, saving me from sorrow and bathing me in beatitude. 24. Should I bow to you today, it would be separating the two, and hence that bow should not be. Or, if I bow to myself, it is fruitless, and hence that too should not be. Should I bow today to you, ever the one, conceiving duality, you will call me an ignoramus. Can there be duality in this immaculate state? 25. Blemishless Sadguru, should I now, in dichotomy, as you and I, bow to you with reverence, I shall be doing a distinct disservice to myself by introducing a delimitation. Is not the idea of difference the foundation for fear? Supreme Guru, hence on inquiry, I cannot see any courtesy or service I can offer. 26. All being ever one consciousness, the best thing is to be totally silent, motionless as a stone, without delusion or illusory sankalpa or vikalpa. In the knowledge of that, the void, firmly remaining by oneself alone, it does not seem to me the part of wisdom to generate any ideas of difference as previously. 27. Affable Guru, who has saved me from sorrow and bathed me in beatitude, by the grace of your instructions, all appearances that seem divided are only myself of the nature of Brahman. There is nothing, not a speck ever, except me, the one, complete and whole. Hence there is no scope at all for me to render lovingly any service as if one apart. 28. In the era of ignorance of earlier days, I perceived the difference as guru and disciple, and this all fulfilling realization today by your grace. I cannot perceive anything apart or different. How shall I describe the splendor of my exalted state, with all contamination of differentiation cleansed, and remaining by myself all alone, with nothing hidden, in the nature of Brahman, all consciousness? 29. How shall I describe the wonder of my exalted state, free from all created worlds, without any guru or student, with no illusory conditionings like the great delusion, none of the individuals, the jivas, or the Lord, Ishvara, being ensconced in the fearless and peerless as the supreme Brahman, the meaning of all the great aphorisms? 30. How shall I describe the grandeur of my exalted state, without a defect, without an excess, without an error, without any qualities or characteristics, without veiling, without revealing, without mind, without illusions issuing from the mind, without anything else, without anything that is mine, without a difference, without a thing that can ever be differentiated, becoming Brahman of the knowledge, of the nature of knowledge alone. 31. For me, there is not the least misapprehension of anything apart from me. I exist as Brahman, changeless existence alone, consciousness alone. If there were anything apart from me except me, myself alone, would it not manifest itself? Would it not manifest itself as nothing else is perceived except myself alone? I remain ever alone by myself. 32. What avails a variety of words? By your revelatory discourse, I have become the Supreme Brahman of shining nature, cured of all the complex of seeming differences, by receiving the changeless, undivided supreme knowledge that all is Brahman, and that am I, my Master, who has risen up as an embodiment of grace and bathed me in beatitude. How great is your grace! How great! 33. Oh, There's not a trace of the illusion of difference. Oh, there's none of the delusion of the cosmic intellect or creation or any such thing. Oh, there's not a trace of thought or such. Oh, there's nothing as individuals. Oh, there's not a trace of confusion. Oh, there's not a trace of attachment. Oh, there's nothing whatsoever anywhere. Oh, all is indeed the undivided Brahman. 34. Oh, what shall I say of the greatness of the Guru? Oh, what shall I say of the greatness of the treatise? Oh, what shall I say of the greatness of knowledge? Oh, what shall I say of the greatness of the sage? Oh, what shall I say of the greatness of the sublime? Oh, what shall I say of the greatness of peace? Oh, what shall I say of the greatness of Brahman bliss? Oh, what shall I say of the greatness of my bliss? 35. Oh, I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, the Eternal. Oh, I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, the Pure. Oh, I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, the Enlightened. Oh, I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, the Liberated. Oh, I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, the Blemishless. Oh, I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, the Motionless. Oh, I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, the Defectless. O my Master, how great is this grace of yours? How great? 36. Apart from seeing all the illusory appearances as Brahman, there's nothing else that I see as a part. By this intense, definite certitude, I have become Brahman, all consciousness. Thus have I conveyed the conclusion in my mind. There's not the minutest doubt in this. Peerless Sadguru, true Guru, fearlessly ruling me completely, is now your responsibility. 37. Having said this, the sage Nidaga abided in the joy of his own peerless nature. Only those who are imbued with devotion to the Guru, along with the devotion to Shiva, will attain this liberation. There's not a trace of doubt about this. Sutta addressed the assembled sages thus, in the manner that Skanda, earlier, with utmost compassion, instructed Jaigishshavya. 38. It is the infinite form of our Supreme Shiva in a state of supremely joyous dance that indicates the attainment of the rare experience of the undivided Supreme Reality, the declaration of direct experience by Nidaga, and that it is not possible to offer service and courtesy to the Guru as there exists nothing except the Absolute. And this concludes chapter 40. Have a really good day. Bye for now.